everybody. We're back here. It's been a spirited break conversation from everything from OnlyFans to political unrest.
Okay. So. What is OnlyFans does feet, apparently. Is that what you just said?
There is a foot fetish.
Yeah, it's called Feet Finder, right?
And it's called Feet Finder.
Yeah.
So what do we need to be talking about here?
I think Mark, this is no advertisement that I know anything beyond the website. I mean, I don't want you to think anything strange of me here.
Hey, look.
I know you just figured out how to use the internet a few weeks ago, but the feetfinder.com is something that for those who have feet fetishes, it allows you to upload feet pictures and get paid on it. So I saw a pretty funny TikTok of a guy. Yeah, I mean, I saw a chick was actually taking pictures of her fiance's feet. And I don't know what the legal ramifications of this are, but she was taking pictures and he didn't realize that she was taking pictures of her feet. She uploaded all of his pictures because there's not many males.
Yeah, that's a no-no.
And she handed him a check for all the money that he made, and he didn't even know he was making money on it. So that was pretty funny.
Yeah, that's a no-no. But there is a distinct factor about if you're a dude and you didn't know that your feet are on OnlyFans, and then someone gives you a check for some money for apparently some guys jacking on your feet, that is just some.
It might not only be men; it could be women too.
It might not, and I'm okay with that.
It could be
but
an existential
still,
crisis.
I don't look. I have told many people this. They'll ask me, what is the one thing you have learned as a divorce lawyer? And it is that human sexuality is a weird deal. Because what is super vanilla for someone is super chocolate for somebody else. And it is all over the place. And the thing about the internet is no matter how big a freak flag you have, you will find other people that are like, yeah, take a shit on her chest. That's awesome. I love that idea.
Someone will always out freak you, and the internet is a very dark and scary place if you want it to be. So
that is crazy though. To me, I mean, I guess I'm super vanilla, but I'm old as shit. So what are you going to say on that? I didn't think I was that vanilla, but I don't understand the whole feed. Yeah.
Well,
there you go.
I don't really know how to segue from Feet Finder to our next topic here, so I'm just going to jump right into it. So
I think that's part of the problem. Why people don't want to be in the office 5 days a week is so that they can fly that freak flag during business hours when they're working out of their house.
So instead of maybe playing solitaire, they're playing Feet Finder instead.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, we just had a call with our marketing company, and we've noticed an uptick in our the way
desktop.
Our desktop
search
traffic. So whereas it 2 months ago was completely mobile, now all of a sudden it's half and half, desktop and mobile.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. That seems to me to be a one-off, but
I don't know, maybe
because it's been going mobile for so long,
but
everything
people are
has
at work
been.
now.
People are back at the office.
To a certain degree. I mean, that's where I loved Elon Musk coming out and saying, work 40 hours in the office or go work somewhere else.
Yeah.
I think that can be a little stringent. I don't think every business needs to be like that. But here's part of the problem is if you can treat it like a business and you actually work, that's great. The problem is that there are too many people that don't.
Well, that's the problem is that the general employee mentality is if you're on incentive base and you're purely salaried, you have no skin in the game. As the business owner, and Mira is taking offense to that in some degree because she does an amazing job, but I consider you as being probably some of the outlier of an employee group because a lot of people like to just punch the ticket. And it makes sense because, candidly, a lot of employers probably aren't paying enough for what's happening in terms of costs of inflation. But the problem is that, the business owners are taking all the risk, so it's very challenging.
That's right.
And so it's a difficult dynamic that will continue. Goldman Sachs came out and said, hey, back to the office, and we're taking away your coffee maker. I don't know if you read about that. That was pretty interesting. They're not even offering coffee to their associates anymore. It's now a paid resource, which is comical considering that they're Goldman Sachs and they're about to probably do a ton of layoffs. But I think what we should talk about is the idea of the hybrid employee. Like what's fair to come back to work, what's not. I just think that there's this dynamic that cannot be replaced in terms of having in-office communication, interfacing, learning, because you become more complacent at home. There are more distractions at home. I have an office that I have never ceased to go to, even through the pandemic. I was there at a minimum, I'd say 2 to 3 times a week during the most strictest of shutoffs, because if I was at home, my wife might be watching a show or like making cookies. I don't know. Something that just like can get me distracted in some sort of sense. It's not to say that my wife.
She's on the feet
Yeah. No.
deal.
Yes, my wife hasn't quite. She doesn't like her feet
get
that
over
much.
here.
so-
I've got something on this feet site that you might
she
really
put
like.
me on the feet side. I think it's very appropriate. But no, my wife was horribly impacted during the pandemic because she was in events and there were no events happening. So, and she had an incredible situation with her boss. He was awesome. But that's neither here nor there. I think getting back to this, I just think there's this really important element of having the camaraderie of an office.
That's huge, and creating a culture.
Sure.
And then so also like from a legal standpoint, and this the knowledge exchange that takes place in an office is something that can't be replicated online. Because if you have a number of offices and a number of attorneys and a number of paralegals in there bouncing ideas off
Sure.
of different people where either that specific area is not your strongest point, or even better, and where I see this more, is when you're trying to get really creative on something and trying to make an obscure argument that you can sell to a judge or a jury.
Sure.
Well, you just don't have that same dynamic. Picking up the phone to call someone or hitting, dialing up a Zoom call and inviting someone, it's not the same dynamic. It's just walking into somebody's office. Hey, what do you think about this? How does this play?
Well, there's also a very subconscious level of human understanding that comes from having a face-to-face conversation.
Right.
The Zoom bridges that gap, and these virtual meetings bridge that gap in some capacity, but there's still, I'd say, an element of disingenuousness that accompanies a video call versus nothing beats the face-to-face piece. And so I think that our American culture is a little bit skewed as to how we view work compared to other parts of the world. We've always been 110% is the only way to be. And I see the viewpoint of the other side saying, hey, let us work on our own time. But when left to your own devices, a lot of times the work doesn't get done. So and there's a lot of studies to support the fact that a complete work from home environment would lead to a massive decrease in productivity.
Oh, there's no question. What's interesting, though, at the very beginning of the pandemic, the numbers were actually just the opposite. They showed an incredible amount of productivity.
Oh, yeah. Remember that.
And then now you get into all of this quiet quitting bullshit and everything else.
It's because
that is where
yeah.
the theory behind quiet quitting is you only do just enough to keep from getting fired. That's it.
That's a thing.
You meet the bare minimum.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then you've had some of these yahoos that have come out and said, well, that's what work is always supposed to be. You only do the bare minimum. What a bunch of horse shit. I mean, do you think you would have the Industrial Revolution that we have gone through and the advances in technology and everything if it was, you know what? I'll tell you what, Mr. Edison, don't worry about, trying to light this shit up. It's been 4.5 hours. Surely that's enough for you. You should go home and churn some butter.
Maybe ride your horse around the meadow.
Do something,
Yeah.
Jeez, oh, there's a rabbit. Let's go shooting. Shit, I don't know what it is, but that is asinine to me. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that we should have the mentality that we do here, which is, I don't remember how long ago this was now. I want to say 5 or 10 years. There was a study that came out that talked about your average employee being scared to actually take the vacation time that they were due because they were afraid that they would lose their job.
That's a culture problem.
In taking that. And I totally agree. That is a culture problem. And that should absolutely not happen. So, I mean, I encourage people to look, if you've got time and you're at a place where you can take some vacation, you need to do that, because getting burned out isn't good for anybody.
No. I mean, what's cool
But
about-
also being just a lackadaisical, exactly, is freaking worthless. I mean, it is just
You heard it here
worthless.
first, folks.
Oh my God.
Vote for Mark Scroggins for your
Get off my lawn.
for your local labor board. Well,
Actually,
yeah.
there is a study that I was reading in the Wall Street Journal that stated that Texas, while it being one of the best places for business owners to come to, is one of the worst places for employees.
Well, and why do you think that is?
At-will work state.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sure, it is a right to work state, but I think one of the things that needs to be observed is just in the fact that I do think in some capacities that we are a little overworked based on the fact that our previous pre-cell phone, pre-email generation, they probably worked a more strict and more dedicated amount of time while they were at the office, but when they came home, they largely turned it off.
Agreed.
And we don't do that now. I find myself sending emails at 11:30, 12 o'clock at
When you
night.
say we, who do you
Well,
mean?
I mean, in terms of like my generation?
Yes.
Or it has
So you're an
people-
outlier
Yes.
then if you're actually responding to shit at 11 o'clock.
That's, yeah, I think there's a lot of people in my generation that have taken a different approach to how work is supposed to be done. But what this has led to is a couple things. Number one, if you overwork your population, they believe more and more that the business owners, whether it be fair or not, because the business owners take all the risk, are reaping all the reward and they're not getting compensated for it.
Yep.
They still believe that. It doesn't change the argument of
Agreed.
what they believe. And so I think from this hybrid perspective, I would be in favor of looking at something like which a few of my business owner clients have done is go to a 4-day work week, where it's a Friday work from home with the business owner's true understanding that there's probably not a whole lot of work getting done on Friday, but that Monday through Thursday in the office is where all your serious work gets done. And your more dedicated employees, like your executive team and your director, are probably working on Friday because they can't afford not to. So it's an example. But what's happening too is that you're finding that as much as Mark loves my generation and Gen Z has become the most prolific generation in terms of creating wealth for themselves in a entrepreneurial environment. They are learning how that they can do a Twitch stream and make 50 to 60 grand a year, 70 grand a year playing video games.
Yeah, that's
And
crazy.
if they can do that, they don't need us. They don't need business owners to employ them. They can just have an audience that pays for them. So, and this will lead into greater issues down the road of there will be more and more people that have to support the people that are, Twitch streaming and getting their donations.
That's exactly right.
So that's going to certainly accompany a good portion of the population, but I do not believe by any means that the rest of the population will be smart enough to figure that out. So,
Yeah, I mean, it is a unique situation. I mean, one of the things we do, we close at 3 on Fridays, okay? And I've kind of messed with the idea, and I'm not done thinking about it, of allowing some people in certain situations to go to a 4-day work week, but it's working 10 hours a day, Monday through Thursday, or if it's Tuesday through Friday, whatever, doing something like that. I think that makes sense. So I guess the question is, with what business you're in, what is and what is not viable, okay? So as a lawyer, I have deadlines that have to be met. If I end up with some opposing counsel that goes down and files an application for a temporary restraining order or protective order on a Friday afternoon, most likely a judge is not going to say, oh, well, shit, they're closed on Fridays, so come back on Monday. That isn't going to happen.
I think this is industry specific, right?
But the problem is that I don't think it is viewed that way. I think you have a class of workers that are looking at everything with rose-colored glasses of the man is out to get me, okay, and I need to do as little as possible to get by. And that is a huge generalization, obviously. But there's got to be something to correct that. And I think, obviously things need to start from the top down on some stuff. Like, I tell people that, here's the amount of PTO that you have, use it or lose it. And I don't begrudge anybody for using the time. Now, it doesn't mean if you see that we are back-to-back trials, on stuff, don't go, oh, right there is where I want to do that, because, that doesn't work. But you can schedule these things to make sure that you're not missing out on kids' activities, that you are taking your kids on vacation, that you and your spouse or significant other are able to go on long weekends or week-long or whatever trips so that you can, recharge the batteries. That is the way it is supposed to happen.
I think I like the devil's advocate you because it not only is it entertaining, but I also like to hear your perspective. I heard a almost like a monologue that this woman put on some platform that I was consuming, and she was saying that I think that the biggest thing that has changed in a lot of our psychology is that we don't feel well rested in today's day and age, post-pandemic world, because we changed the way that we viewed life during the pandemic. Like things slowed down. We took stock into probably more family time and into a work-life balance. It was probably more suitable for a modern age. Now, is that right? No, it's not. But what she's saying is now the 1 week vacation, maybe 2 week vacation that most average workers are afforded might not be enough. It might need to be a change and then the happiness that goes down of your employee is everything, right? You want to maintain morale as the number one piece of business owner. So like what you do, I think is really important. I like how your firm goes on company trips. I like you guys have like abbreviated work hours. You know, at our firm, we have a summer Friday policy where if there's nothing on the calendar on a Friday and then, you know, it's kind of, it ends early, you know, check in from 8:30 until 11, 12 o'clock and then kind of go play golf.
Right.
Kind of situation.
Yeah.
Or have intentional company retreats that can help break up the workday. So there's a lot of solutions out there, but I think people that are advocating for a pure pure work from home, they're just working from a place of lunacy, because the reality is that no matter what they think in their head, 90% of employees, in my opinion, can't do without structure.
Agreed.
And if they are given the freedom, it's like imagine if when you were a kid, if you didn't have like a class schedule and have the structure of school, then you wouldn't learn anything.
Look at college.
Yeah. College is a
seriously. I mean, by the end of my tenure at the University of Texas, I'd figured out that hey, classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays got me a 4-day, weekend every weekend, and sometimes I really needed a 6-day weekend, so I took it, and I didn't make it on Tuesdays or Thursdays occasionally. So, now. What did that end up meaning? It meant that I had to read everything and do stuff outside to make sure that I was able to get the grades to do what I wanted to do. But, was I as disciplined as I needed to be? No. So I don't think you can, unfortunately, I think most people, you're absolutely right, have to have some structure. It just doesn't work the other way.
It's funny to possess the duality of college and socialism too, of how well those systems work intertwined, and how the real world output of that is very dangerous. So, well, I think if you have a problem not being in the office, then you might not want to work for our company, is the moral of the story. But we appreciate your company on this podcast. We'll take a break.
Have a good one.